I appreciate everybody coming. Carolyn, I know you'd much rather be outside shoveling snow, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, I need the exercise.
How much have you gotten today?
It started yesterday. We probably have about 17 inches and it's still coming down.
I saw the picture. It was beautiful, but I'm just going,
Yeah.
wow. That's
Yeah, no, we're not done with it yet, but down on the flats in Denver and Boulder, their trees are down. I don't know what the damages are up here yet, but we had power blips last night, off and on.
wow.
It's just insane out there. But I was out there with Carolyn for a Starfest con
Last weekend.
in Denver, and left on Monday, and it was 89 degrees when I left, and it stayed that way for a couple of days. Then it shot down to like 30s or 40s or something over a period of, I don't know, a day, 12 hours, something like that.
Yeah, Ken, you're lucky. A lot of times Starfest was earlier in the month and we would get snowed on. So
one of the ones I did previously got snowed the entire time we were there. I got in and out
yeah,
okay.
yeah, you're right. It was when LeVar was here.
Yeah.
Was that the last of the Starfest?
Yeah. The owners of the fest are in their 70s and they would kind of like to retire. And many of the organizers and the crew are getting up there. So and then our longtime MC died last year, and there were a lot of precipitating events, but it was still a really, really unique experience to have.
For those of you who don't know, Carolyn organizes the Science Fest part of Starfest, or I don't know, 6 or 7 Subfest under the overall umbrella. And every year she's gotten better and better, invited more people, gotten more time on the main stage, et cetera. And this year may have been the best of all.
Yeah, well, it was pretty good.
I was just going to suggest, you're so good at it, why don't you just take the whole thing over?
I've actually talked to them about it, and there's, putting the thing on is fine, but there's the difficulties of dealing with all of the agents of the celebrities, and the COVID issue is really big still. A lot of celebrities do not want to be in person. I mean, we had plastic protection shields around all of them. It's still not good. I mean, Brent Spiner was here this year and he really insisted that he be completely protected. And a lot of people just didn't want to travel. So it's getting tougher and tougher right now until this pandemic kind of goes down again.
Yeah, if you do bring it back, you can bring it back as the next generation.
That's what everybody's saying. And there are people that would like to do it, but they want to start small and build it up again. I mean, there was a crew of about 200 people, I think and then I don't know how many attendees they got, about 3,000 or 4,000 people. So it's a smaller one. It's not like a Comic-Con, but it's grown. It was the 45th year.
Wow. Well, thanks for the recap on it, and enjoy the snow.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, today we're going to be looking at home movies. I've got some from the 65 season of the New York World's Fair, some from Disneyland from the 60s, and then we'll end up with a quick jaunt through Expo 67 up in Montreal. So let me get the movie ready here. Okay, 1 second. All right, share screen. Optimize for video clip. There's no sound on this one, so I don't need to share that. Okay, so this one here is about 32 minutes long, shot by a Filipino family, and they got some really nice views. You'll see with some of the Disneyland ones later, some of these people think, oh, if I take 2 seconds of this and 3 seconds of that, I'll capture everything. Well, it's sort of like looking at a strobe presentation of a movie. This fellow managed to get some really nice shots and didn't whip the camera around, held it steady, and did a pretty nice job. So we've come in through the Gotham Gate, seen the Journal Foods Arch. There's the Angel Maroney at the top of the Mormon Pavilion. And I get a kick out of the woman here carrying this hat box. And maybe you ladies can tell me, do they even still make hat boxes these days? But she carries this throughout the day, throughout the World's Fair, and I keep wondering what on earth, maybe they're going to some dinner after or something. I personally would have rented one of the lockers for $1 and put it in there, but she carries it throughout the day. Does anybody, any of you ladies, yeah, everybody should be able to speak. I didn't mute everybody. Is any ladies, are hat boxes still a thing, or people don't wear hats much, do they? But she just carries it around.
Is
So
she
here's-
using it as a purse?
I don't know. It just seems like an awfully awkward purse if she does. Yeah,
He's
this is,
smiling out building parts for Joey.
yeah. This is one of the things I enjoy about the fair, looking at the pictures here, even in 65 when they were in financial issues and had cut back on all sorts of things, that they never seem to cut back on the flowers. There's just, that they look great all the time you see them. They changed them with the season. So you had spring flowers, fall flowers, that sort of thing. It would have been easy just to say, we don't have money for flowers, pull them out, put some sod in there. Just let it go, but they didn't do that. And this particular film held up pretty well. You can see it's got a few vertical scratches on it, but the colors on it, the sky never really comes back to a really good blue on any of it. So I don't know how much this was the New York smog at the time or other issues. It pretty much seemed to be a cloudy day the entire time. And you can see he's got a fairly nice zoom lens and takes his time with the zooms in and out, which really is appreciated. The Johnson Wax Golden Rondell Theater, now been relocated to Racine, Wisconsin. The Rocket Thrower, one of the very few pieces of art commissioned for the 64 fair, which really differentiated from the 39 fair, which had so much. 7-Up right there, DuPont. These fountains are off for the moment. Johnson Wax, they're off to the side, and there she's got her hat box.
She's also carrying a purse.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah. As I said, the flowers are nice. Tulips here. 7-Up again in the background. Quite a few people up on the Skyway that particular day. It was a massive system. You know, Disneyland, Disney World, of course, had their own Skyway, same design, but this one with the 2 parallel tracks on it was particularly large. And being Filipino, they went to the Philippine Pavilion. There's one of the little Jeep devices that they had there on display.
I know she has a different jacket on there.
Yeah, this might have been shot over different days because the flowers also seem to be a bit different. We had some fall flowers it looked like before. Here we have tulips, which gives me more of a spring, but every time you see her, she has the hat box. There she's changing her jacket. Maybe she puts the jacket in the hat box. One thing is we'll see a lot of her putting a scarf on, particularly when she goes like up to the top of the New York State Pavilion and it's very windy. And it's just another thing as I was looking at it thinking you don't see a lot of women wearing scarves these days. I don't know what kind of car that is. Maybe some of the car enthusiasts can tell us. There's a different one driving off. And there's our beloved pavilion. And coming down, we're going to see the VIP level. Kids, ride down the silo. For I think it was $25, you could get a burlap sack come riding down the slide. the rest of Wisconsin there. Here comes somebody down now. Yay, having fun. The slide on silo was relocated. A fellow named Randy Treadway tracked down where it is today. So kids are still riding the silo today. Helicopter was used for an expedition to the Antarctic. This is again what I like about the movies is you see so many things that move. Like here, this guy called the zookeeper, all made out of car parts, and his eyes light up and everything. Still photos, he's just standing there. Here he's moving around. We'll see some of his other zoo beasts move. After the fair, he ended up being bought by a city in New Jersey and stood outside. Why they wanted the zookeeper, I don't know, but he was in New Jersey for about 20, maybe close to 30 years before he finally succumbed to salt weather erosion, and they took him down. You can imagine coming along, going to the beach in New Jersey, and this guy just standing in a parking lot staring at you. World's largest engine, 1 million horsepower. Actually, I think it was only 980,000. They lied, but how do you know? Giant car. It's interesting, there's a auction going on. I think it's this weekend for one of the World's Fair Mustangs. People very proud that it was actually used at the ride. I've never heard of any of the Chrysler cars that were on exhibit at the Chrysler being a highly sought after collector's item.
The turbine cars they displayed still there?
Yeah, the turbine car would be a big collectible. That's for sure. The other cars, I imagine, there's no easy way to tell that they were a World's Fair car as opposed to the Mustang. Certain distinguishing factors. Imagine the guys that worked for Chrysler just said, how do we make these animals? What car parts can we use? And just had some fun with taking stuff off the line that normally used for one thing and repurposing it for another. As you see, some parts a bit overexposed, but for the most part, he did a really nice job on it. He certainly seemed to like the zookeeper. An early transformer, right?
Did she have the hat box there?
I couldn't tell if it was behind the purse or not. I was looking for it and couldn't quite tell. I still remember, I wish these were sound because that rocket fountain there was very, very loud. No, I don't see the hat box here. Maybe she finally listened to me and got a locker for it. No, that fountain was very loud. The water just came shooting out of there at a very, very high velocity. Up on the window of the car there was a parking ticket that you stayed too late. I always thought that was kind of strange, saying, made it look like the 65 season was unplanned or something, but it's a parking ticket in the window inside the giant engine. Oh, he's carrying the hat box. There's the hat box. She's bobbed it off on him.
They were fascinated by the Chrysler Pavilion, which is kind of good because you rarely see detailed, video of it.
Yeah, you wonder, did they drive a Chrysler? Did he work for Chrysler? What made him so interested in it? But yeah, some really nice footage of it. One of the problems, of course, with Super 8 is that you had to run the reel halfway, take it out of the camera, flip it over, and then use the other half. So you end up with that light flare that we just saw off to the left, near the beginnings or ends of scenes, if people weren't 100% careful about doing it in the dark. So, you can always tell when you're starting to watch a film, if you're getting near the halfway mark on one of the little 50-foot rolls, if the light starts flashing in there like that. After the fair, somebody on Long Island bought these horses as his World's Fair souvenir. This is the only time I've ever seen them put people up on the horses. I was rather surprised to spot that.
Did they ever stop for waffles in this movie?
No, there's no waffle shots. They did like the beers, as the ever-present nuns here are enjoying theirs, but I don't recall any waffle shots. And off we go for a little jaunt on the Avis rent-a-car.
You notice that the husband has his binocular case. She has her hat box and he has binocular case.
Yes, you're going to see him up there on the top of the New York State Pavilion, and he's putting them to good use up there. They also spent a fair amount of time at Lowenbrow.
Bill, I noticed that both the husband and wife were wearing Chrysler VIP badges. Was that something given out to everybody?
I don't recall how you got those particular ones. That's a good point. They, again, may show why they have such an affinity to Chrysler.
I
Bill,
do.
how many feet of film did it take to make something this long? Or how many reels?
Say this would be 9 50-foot reels. When I edited it all together, I forget exactly how many footage it came to, but each 50-foot reel is around 4 minutes. This runs just short of 36, and that's after I cut out all the bad splices and some totally overexposed stuff. And at one point, I don't think he realized he was photographing his foot. So I took that out. So there are 9, maybe 10 reels of film in this particular one. They were all spliced together, and I scanned them in one shot. Luckily, most of the splices held up. I think I had to repair 2 of them. So
It's
we're
an
up to-
impressive amount of film.
What's that?
It's an impressive amount of film for one
It is.
person.
Yeah, you consider you had to carry all that, and that's what I was wondering actually. If we joke about the hat box, but was it full of rolls of film, stuff like that? That might have been a traveling film lab.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I bet you that's why she's carrying the hat box. All the film is in it.
Yeah, because it'd certainly be a big lump in a purse, that sort of thing. It was also when we first see her with the hat box, she was tapping the strap on it, tap, 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 like, she wasn't happy about it. So I was just wondering if she was turned into the pack mule for the trip.
I remember back to the last question, there was a little hand-like thing that was a Chrysler badge that you had. I had no connection with Chrysler, but my sister and I have these little badges that were somewhat in the shape of a hand.
Yeah, I actually had, they must have given them out to everybody, because I probably have about 20 of them that I got as a kid. It was interesting, you can actually tell the difference between a 1964 badge and a 1965. The 1964 ones were on a real heavy cardboard stock, and then the 65 ones were about a third of the thickness. I imagine a lot cheaper to make. But I went to Chrysler more than I remembered, because I've kept my collection separate. Everything that I got as a kid is in one box, and everything I've acquired over the years is another. And my personal box has, like I said, maybe 20 of those Chrysler hands in there. So I guess I went there a lot more than made an impression on me. I do remember trying to get a turbine car model, and I was never picked for the lottery. You can see the smog, the city off in the distance there. I was never ever able to get one of the turbine car models that they gave away. Polaris rocket out in front there. And again, you know, you say you don't know which way your life's going to go in different directions. But here in 1965, looking at it, and in 1973, I was working on it. So you don't realize how you're going to be going some places at times. Overhead view of a serpentine phone booth. Traffic has changed a little. Up there goes somebody else down the slide. Maybe it's the same kid. Maybe he had a giant stack of quarters. Yeah, he's a fellow that photographed this, spent a fair amount of time, no pun intended, up at the top of the New York State Pavilion. So we got some really nice views. Anybody can ID the plane, please let me know. Shea Stadium in the back, the Elmhurst gas tank in the back, way in the back, just went out of range. The dog is getting ready for the mail lady, I think. Oh, sounds like she's just driving by, not knocking at the door today. The dog's going to be disappointed. Oh, I'm going to mute myself for a moment till the dog calms down. Whoops, hit wrong button. The dog is very upset. Her favorite mail lady did not come to the door today. So right here, you can see how the film got a little milky looking. At some point, they had stripped the perforations out of the film, and they used a repair tape, which you could buy these things, cut them to length, and glue them on top of your film, which then would have its new set of perforations in it. So it's great. It lets you project the film again, but you do lose some quality when they put that on. So that's one of the nice things about this scanner is it does not use the projection holes. It pulls the film through by the leader, and then it just goes over a set of capstans and that. So it has a little laser light that detects the sprocket holes for the film timing, but it does not need the sprocket holes to pull it through there. So even if I have something that's pretty well damaged, the scanner is able to do it. But when I first got it, and I clean all these by hand, I think he's got probably maybe about six sections where he had to repair the sprocket holes on it over the years of projecting it. LaGuardia Airport way off in the distance. Like I said, he was really enjoyed being up at the top. We're going to see the folks up here in just a moment. The shot coming up of the lake amusement area, and you can see the carousel going around. And it was interesting. I hadn't realized that the carousel roof moved with the carousel. It's striped. It's like orange and red stripes. Here she is with her scarf, and she's got the binoculars, and we're going to see him up there. This mirrors all my visits up there. It was always very breezy. Now he's looking around. He's studying quite a bit. We're going to see a little red thing that looks like a payphone off to the side, and it was a mechanical device. You dropped a quarter in, and there was a recording that would say, if you look out to the left, you'll see this. If you look to the right, you'll see that. There it is, right there. And there were a number of them up there, different ones at different vantage points. If you go up to the tower today, the mounting plaques for those audio devices are still up there. Don't know what company put them up there, and nobody's ever been able to find the descriptive audio, but that was a kind of neat thing that they did for the tour. They also had the binoculars that you put a quarter in, and you get about 2-3 minutes before the shutter would drop down and you'd have to put another quarter in. But in this particular case, if you bring your own, you're all set.
We
Yeah.
saw that when we went up there. We saw the plaque, what's left of it,
Yeah,
and there's also under the stairs that lead up to the top deck, there was a weather machine, and you can still see where that was as well.
yeah. I saw in the pictures that you did, you could see where the weather recording stuff was.
Was it a weather machine? It was-
Well, weather station. It didn't make
Yeah,
weather.
it's
It
like-
recorded.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was an advancement I didn't know they had yet.
Yeah, it's
There-
like a
there's the
weather
carousel
station.
rotating.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things they tried. There's another one of the phone things. The city service band with Paul Lavelle, it had been very, very popular on the radio doing performances, and they came out and did this at the fair. After the fair, that was one of the things that was sold at auction, was their rolling bandstand. Mock-up of the Friendship 7 outside the Missouri Pavilion. Come on, smile. You know, I also wonder if they were from Wisconsin or something, because the Wisconsin Pavilion shows up an awful lot too. They were probably from someplace relatively small, because, you know, the highways were fascinating to them. We're going to see more of this in their night shots of the various areas, and you'll see how they used lighting in the GM Pavilion. They're not taking a trip, they're just visiting a European style bus that General Motors was selling. Greyhound information booth off to the left there. And it's starting to get darker, as you can see. We're starting to get more shadows. We're starting to get sort of a golden hue to the light in some of the shots as sunset is coming. Taking a ride along one of the glide-a-ride trams right now. Spain Pavilion. The Passerelle entrance area. Gotham Plaza. Just like when he first came in, he liked the entrance pylons. Billy Graham Pavilion Tower. Geometric shapes, not representing any nation. You still go up to this area today, and last I was up there, I think they still have benches to sit on. This one, the train lovers will enjoy it. The whole new set of brand new Bluebird train cars all stacked up there in the yard. Looking over to Shay real quick. Again, more light flare beginning or end of a reel. This is where I suspect the other one is they were just going home. Now they've come in the next day, Tower of London there. You can go and see replicas of the crown jewels, not the real things.
Nice blue skies.
Yeah, it's a nicer day today, isn't it? Looks like the clouds are coming in. I was so bummed out that the light is shining off the Kodak picture there because they were reflective prints. Because if I knew exactly what print that was, I could try to figure out closer to what time of year it was actually shot. Again, getting later in the day, you can see the shadows getting longer. And he's probably getting himself a good spot for the fireworks. We caught quite a few of them coming up here. One of the flagpoles left from the 3940 fair. The lunar fountain. Masonic. That arch is still at a Masonic temple today out in the back of one of their facilities. It's nice to keep finding things that have survived. The Singer Bowl. And we segue into nighttime. When I scanned this, I had to scan the film 3 separate times to take care of different lighting issues. Because if you scan it set for the daytime, it drives it crazy at night. If you try to adjust it for night, then it blows out everything during the day. So we're actually seeing is 3 different scans all edited together. So the fountains, you can see the logo, the Bell System Pavilion in the background, the fountains going ahead in front of it. And they just went on and on and on until they had the fireworks show, but they had music playing. The lights would change colors as the fountains are going, and now the fireworks show has started. And it was a really long show. It lasted probably about 10, 15 minutes a night, every single night of the fair, 7 days a week for the entire length of the fair. There is a report that they had a larger fireworks show on the 4th of July. I've never been able to verify that because the music track that they used was probably the same as any other night. But this gives you a good idea how the lighting has changed on the fountain in the background. There's some pauses between different parts of the fireworks going off where different narration and music, and then more of it launches off for us. A lot of the stuff that you can see how things have changed in terms of technology too, that today we get fireworks that make all sorts of different shapes in the sky and come down with making different patterns. Today we'd be probably getting drones going up there and doing Unisphere simulations or something in the sky. But I love staying late. My parents hardly ever wanted to stay late, but I enjoyed doing it. Some of the lights need changing on the New York State Pavilion. I have reports that a guy named Joey Vento took them home, so that they're still missing. Take a look here at General Motors. It's kind of a blue-green in this particular shot. It goes dark. Now it comes back with a more orangey motif. So they kept changing the way that the building looked. It would kind of pulsate in different colors. Quick look over towards Chrysler. Doesn't show as well, but you can make out parts of the engine. There's the Lowenbrow sign. The rocket, one of the cars in the little lagoon there. Again, more Chrysler. That was part of the mural around the lagoon. And then we jump all of a sudden inside the Poupée de Paris puppet show. The Risque puppet show, adults only.
I think that's the only footage of this I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's interesting. Somebody's selling a film on eBay right now, and they describe the this particular costume here, the Yowza costume of a girl in a Vegas showgirl collecting tickets. So, yeah, I've got still pictures of it, Don, but I don't think I have any other movies that I can recall of it jumping around. So this looks like the lights are moving. It's flags flickering in front of it. But you can see the lights, some of them have burned out. Vatican Pavilion looking up to the cross at the top. And we'll see some more fireworks, then we'll leave the fair and go to Disneyland. I like some of these shots because you can see how the water is pulsating, that it goes up at different levels. It just wasn't going on. They would drop the levels down, you know, so there was a lot of movement going on, a lot of eye candy for fountain fans or firework fans, that sort of thing. I don't know if I'll play all the rest of the fireworks because they look a little the same after a while. There's another nice thing about the fair. Even again, they had big financial woes. The 64 fireworks shows were as good as the 64 fireworks shows. They didn't skimp down. You know, if they did use 10% less rockets, I never noticed it in all my times going there. But as I was saying, my parents didn't like to stay for the fireworks because my brothers were younger. They were always tired and cranky at the time, and they wanted to get them home. So a couple times I would go in with the parents, and then they would, you know, make sure I had the money to take the train to come back home. And we lived about maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles from the train station in Baldwin. And so my brother and I, Jim and I, would ride home on the train and just walk home, and everything was nice and great and safe for, you know, 12, 13-year-old kids at the time. Or other days we would come in with the fair on the train, or I'd come in with my friend's sister who worked at the Bell system, and they'd of course have to stay until the end of their shift. So we would just go out, watch the fireworks, go back to the Bell system, jump in the Mustang for the ride back to Long Island. Great, great happy memories. And I mentioned on a prior show how they dimmed the lights of the pavilions around the fair so you could see the fireworks show. So the ones that are around the lagoon dimmed. You don't see the Bell system building, but Bell was pretty smart. They agreed to dim the building, but they didn't agree to dim the Bell system logo. So everybody that's standing there watching the fireworks show subliminally is getting a dose of the Bell system, you know, throughout the entire show.
Did the show have a sponsor?
Nope, no sponsor. It wasn't the fireworks show is brought to you by, it was basically brought to you by the New York World's Fair Corporation. If you go on my site, I have the audio tape for most of the fireworks show, because it varied. They had the patriotic show one night, the college show another night, that sort of thing. And it was just sponsored by the World's Fair Corporation. Today, of course, it'd be, the fireworks show tonight is brought to you by crypto, the currency that's going to bankrupt you. I saw an ad yesterday for cryptocurrency popped up on Facebook or something, and it was retire with confidence, invest your 401k where you know where it's going in cryptocurrency. Since it dropped 40% so far this year, yeah, you know where it's going. Of course, I know what's happened to my Disney stock too, so we know where that's going. But if anybody says retire in confidence, that's only because you put the gold Krugerrands under your pillow or something.
Yeah, I'm afraid to even look at my 401k.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let me jump over here to, we're going to go to Disneyland now. And we are going to start with Disneyland. in 1967 here. Oh, I've turned the music off on this one, so let me just turn it down here on mine. So I got a kick out of this one. This again is a standard 8 movie. We haven't gotten into Super 8 yet, so the fidelity is not quite as sharp. And as I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago when we did this, you never know quite how good the optics are on any of the cameras. But it still turned out pretty well. We have a nice little parade going down the street. Today, of course, everything has changed so much. We have Mickey.
Bill, do they still run any of the vehicles down Main Street?
You know, I haven't been to Disneyland since the whole pandemic thing started. The last time I went, I think they were running them for about an hour at the beginning of the day, but then it just gets so damn crowded, they can't get them through the crowds.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember too, right?
The only one I saw on my last few trips out there was the horse-drawn trolley.
And even there, they have to call that off, you know, as the park fills up.
Mhm.
It definitely has gotten more and more crowded. It's also interesting if you look at these old movies on Main Street, everybody's walking on the sidewalks. You know, because you know, in your hometown, you don't walk down the middle of the street, right? So you go to Disneyland, you don't walk down the middle of Main Street. It's you know, today it's so crowded you can't just stay on the sidewalk. There wouldn't be room for you to do that. Building off to the left there, a little semicircular thing was a picture phone service that they used while Tomorrowland, Tomorrowland was being rebuilt. They had to have a spot for picture phone to work. In 1967, you talked to the people at Expo 67. Just going through that shot was a picture of the marshal with his 10-gallon hat and his 6-shooter, things that they don't have today. You know, they used to have the shootouts in the middle of Fantasyland today, or Frontierland rather. But today, of course, if you know somebody heard gunshots, everybody would be running for their lives. We're going to see more of the mine train real quick in the next film.
Most missed rides in Disneyland.
Yeah, I love the mine train. I enjoy Thunder Mountain, but you know, it's too bad that they weren't able to find some way to make the two of them coexist. And again, we wish we had sound. How many have the song going through your head right now? Some scenes are real dark, but I left them in just, you know, as a hint of what was there. Like there, that was for Joey, the giant gorilla. I have to say, I still like the castle with these colors, not what they've done to either of the Disney castles these days. House of Tomorrow. Oh, caught you kissing. Hey, come on, this is a family park. Go home, get a room.
Bill, do you recall, was the House of Tomorrow torn down with the new Tomorrowland, or did it survive past that?
I think it was torn down about the same time. I don't know for sure, and whatever I say, somebody will correct me. But I don't recall it be because I didn't get there during that period of time. but I don't recall pictures of it with the new Tomorrowland, the 67 Tomorrowland behind it. But they may have had an overlap because during this time this film was taken, they were building the new one. So it's interesting to see it's still there. Indian Dance Ring.
Did the new Tomorrowland open in 67 or 68?
Thought it was 67, might have been.
Yeah, I think it's
68.
67.
Okay.
I'm checking Yesterland, don't know.
Oh, thanks.
Very little Werner doesn't know.
I think it was 67. See if I win a trivia contest on that or not.
House of the Future closed in 67. I don't know when they tore it down though.
The Barker Bird, they had to move him because he was plugging up the walkway. All right, let me stop the screen share just for a second before I get into the next one. Yeah, Animal Race Polka. The next one is really kind of interesting. You know, I always ask people if there's talks that they're interested in giving or that sort of thing. And I don't see if he's on here this week. There's a fellow that works with Ken Carpenter at NASA. And he sent me a note saying, you know, a really interesting talk would be a subject of how they built the London Bridge in Lake Havasu. And I wrote back and said, yeah, Brent, that would be really nice, but I don't have anything on it. And if you do know anybody, and he mentioned how it was part of the guy that did the construction was Cornelius Wood, known as Woody, who helped build Disneyland. And I actually worked with Woody at Warner Brothers. So I wrote back to Brent and said, you know, that's really interesting. I'd love to do it, but I don't have anything on London Bridge. Well, the next day or 2-3 days later, I get a reel of film that I had bought 2-3 weeks earlier, put it in the scanner, and as you're going to see, we're going to see the construction of London Bridge. So I keep saying, what were the odds of that? You know, and I was really scared these geeks at NASA were able to go ahead and intercept my mail and realize this unseen roll of film. Because I actually went back to eBay and looked, and did it mention the building of London Bridge? And did he happen to catch on that? Nope, it didn't mention it at all. So this next reel is really weird because it starts at Disneyland. We're going to take a super quick look at downtown Hollywood, the Chinese Theater and the Hollywood Bowl. We're going to then jump to Lake Havasu, and then of all things, we're going to end up at the Kennedy Space Center. So it's something in there for all of us, for you know, the space fans. For those that have worked on the space program or anything, you're going to see, you know, all the old blockhouses and hangars and everything as they existed in 1968. So, you know, 1 year before the launch of Apollo 11. But there is an Apollo spacecraft out on pad 39. So I don't know, was this shot late in the year? And, you know, when was this thing staged? Or was this one of the other, you know, so I'm hoping that some of you space fans can tell me more there. So let me hop over here to this one real quick. And I will share the screen again. And in this particular one, this was a really tough one to do. I had to scan this particular one 5 times because the guy that shot it had no awareness apparently of light meters. So it was incredibly bright, incredibly dark. And then he also just shot things for very fast shots. And you're going to see it's not the same caliber as the big long World's Fair one that we had. So we start off in the Indian Village with a teepee there and some of the totem poles. Like I said, this was very overexposed, and about the best I could stop it down to doing something with it. One of the keel boats at the dock not going out. real quick through tomorrow, the Jungle Cruise, right? Nature's Wonderland. The beloved People Mover, some of Mary Blair's work. Riding on the People Mover, and there's the Mighty Microscope inside. So again, he shot these things real quick. The Small World was a new edition at the time for 1968. I think it only been put in there in 67 or so. The Submarine Lagoon without water in it. So again, we're bouncing around. You can tell when you go over one of the wheels on the People Mover. But if you ever wondered what it looked like without water, that would tell you. Patchwork quilt, and here comes Casey Jr. down the road. This was almost totally black. I was amazed the scanner could pull this out. The Captain Hook pirate ship. Oh, we're done with Disneyland. We're going to see the Hollywood Bowl, the escalator at the Hollywood Bowl, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang at the Chinese Theater. People at the Walk of Fame there, the stars. Again, real quick. So that's all of Hollywood. Now we're at the farmer's market. Again, this was almost pitch black, but lots of produce. And if you looked at the prices on some of these things, you would be horrified by what we're paying today. Then we jump out here to the desert, and I believe we're at Lake Havasu. Or maybe we're at Palm Springs. I don't know where we are for these initial houses. Again, super overexposed. Did what I could to try to salvage it. But we're going to see a sign all of a sudden that's perfectly exposed to the Lake Havasu Visitor Center. So if anybody recognizes any of these houses or buildings as famous architectural works, please let me know.
Bill, are you certain that's Lake Havasu?
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. If anybody
Could
recognizes
it be the Sultan's? Oh, no, there it tells you right there.
Yeah, now right there. What were the odds of Brent Warner being able to say, do you have anything on on the London Bridge? And here it is. So for those that don't know it, they bought the bridge over in London, took it down. Oh, there's a rumor that they thought they were buying Tower Bridge and they got London Bridge. Woody told me no, it was great press story on it. But they took the bridge and they numbered every single block as they took it down with a number, spray painted on it. You can see there's a chain link fence around there, because I was looking at this when I first watched the film thinking, boy, I wonder what they would have done if they were putting the bridge together and they realized that a block was missing and you were holding it for ransom. So again, I could just see somebody like Joey driving out there with a pickup truck and taking a block of stone home. So
it would be like building IKEA furniture when you
Yep.
get to a certain point and you're missing one peg or whatever.
yeah,
They got a huge sheet with pictures of people putting all the blocks together. That was all the instructions they had.
yeah, the IKEA version of a bridge. That's a pretty good one. So anyway, they've got the pictures of the bridge out there. Now we're going to go to something totally surreal. Like I said, this guy just jumps anywhere. We're now in Florida. This is either Weeki Wachee or Silver Springs. I don't know which of the two, but it looks like the Smurfs are out going around. Now we're at Cape Kennedy. Again, the vehicle assembly building, some of the other facilities that folks will recognize. Number of things on the pad, different things that are there. The Space Museum. Again, this guy just shot really, really quick shots of different things, but I thought folks that are in the space program might enjoy it. Hey, my Polaris, it's there. So many of these things now have been preserved, put under cover. One of the old blockhouses, hangars, the famous lighthouse out there on the Cape. A lot of these gantries and everything are totally gone now. So it's just a monument over there. That 39, Launch Complex 39. So if anybody knows what one that was, that's fun. Now we're going to jump here one more film. We're going to jump all the way to Expo 67. I just started working on those, and this particular one, the very beginning of it, we're going to get a tour through the United States Pavilion, and then we're going to hit over to the amusement area. So again, the lighting on some of these is really tough. You just pull out what you can on it, but the backlighting throws off the camera. But we're just getting up to the top of the escalator. A big display of American Indian headdresses. The people, the little train, the mini rail went right through the pavilion. Pop art being a big thing coming up in pop art becoming a big thing in 67. Very, very popular pavilion. Huge lines outside and waiting here to get up into the escalator. There were multiple levels there with different things about American folk art, our political system and how the elections work. Greetings from President Johnson for coming in. The pavilion is still there today. You can still go up to the levels, which it's an open air pavilion because the outer plastic skin burned in a fire, but it's called the Bio Biosphere. And Carol and I were up there. We got our pictures taken by a friend up at the top level. And it's a great way to go back to Montreal and reconnect to the days of Expo 67. Up at the very top was a very large display of NASA equipment, including an Apollo capsule that had been flown for testing. There it is. So again, we've not made the moon landing at the time, but we have been sending Apollo capsules up to test the recovery system. This was billed as the longest escalator in the world at the time. Somebody tells me that was a little bit of fudging, but it was quite a spectacular ride. We're gonna be going up to the top again. And now we're at the amusement ride. The fellow is zoomed in a little too tightly, but we're getting an elephant ride. So the kids are having fun with that. So they had a jungle area there where you could take these rides, or you could go through on jeeps, and there were different animals and that sort of out there. Well, Ronde is the name of the amusement area, the Round. It's still there today. It's, I believe, operated by the Six Flags Corporation, and most of the Expo rides are gone. This one, I think it's still there, Old 99, the kids ride train. The log flume ride had been very, very popular, and I think it closed about 2 years ago. That was a holdover that they just decided was past its end of life for maintenance, and they couldn't keep it going. But there are still some vestiges of Expo 67 still out at the amusement area. The spiral tower goes up, turns around, gives you a view. The Gyrotron, the most disappointing ride at Expo 67. You were going to go and see a monster in the pits of hell, and it just didn't play out at all. It was a spectacular ride with a great buildup and a very, very disappointing finish to it.
Yeah, that little robot was just strange.
It was. It made no sense with everything else going on. Antique cars. Popular things even today for kids at the Utopia. You know, kids like to feel they're growing up and they want to go for a drive. This was Rub-a-Dub-Dub, 3 Men in a Tub, a little ride that you would go through and take you down a water channel. Fort Edmonton in the background was a recreation of a section of old Canada. You could go in and the dance hall girls would entertain you, sort of their version of Frontierland. And that's it. I've got more Expo 67 coming, but I didn't have a chance to finish them today. So that's it for home movies there. Anybody see any? I have to go back through the comments here. Any memories or anybody? Did anybody see themselves? That's what I keep, every time I get one of these, I keep hoping that I spot myself walking by in one of these. But so far no luck. So maybe Kenneth, if you can ask Brent to let me know when I'm going to get the reel of film that I'm in.
We'll do that. That story about the Havasu and the bridge and Brent reminds me. I meant to mention a really short story here. On the way out to Denver last week, when I was flying out, sat next to this really personable lady in the middle seat behind me. We started chatting and actually chatted like the whole way to Denver. It was kind of fun. But it turns out she works for a commercial construction company. I said, well, what kind of things you build? Anything I might know? And what are the odds that it was her company that built the Millennium Falcon ride at Disneyland?
Wow.
He said, no, we didn't design it. That was the Imagineers, but we actually are the people that put the nuts and bolts together and constructed it. Some company called Whiting Turner Contracting. But it's like, okay, that's odd and really cool. I don't remember whether she said they did the Florida one also or not, or whether they just did the California one. I know she said that one.
Well, it is a small world sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, so to say, so to speak, yes.
You know, it's interesting at times you're talking to people and, you know, for whatever reason, in line at Disneyland or Disney World or something, and then you mention something and the guy says, wait, you're from that town? I live there too. You know, and you figure you would have been standing there if you hadn't mentioned something, you know, the word Baldwin came up or something. The guy says, Baldwin, you're from Baldwin? You would have stood there and never known it. You never know how close things are.
Yeah,
You know,
it's possible I mentioned the word Disney, you know, because when I talk, often that happens. But she grabbed it.
yeah, that's funny. I'm just reading here the comments that Shelley or Rob mentioned, ate at the Festival of Gas. Carol and I just had lunch on Thursday with Albert Fisher and worked at the fair, and he was mentioning how the Festival of Gas was one of his favorites, and he loved to take VIPs there. And Tom Brooks was the woman, the inspiration for the Hatbox Ghost, and then Glenn Barker. Tell us about doing the voice of the Hatbox Ghost. What does the Hatbox Ghost say?
Well, they wanted a sound to go along with it. And so I just went in the booth and I did a little chuckle, like, and we tried it and they all loved it, you know. So if you please your art directors, then you get to be in an attraction.
That's pretty neat. Now, Carol is asking, are they still using it? You did it on the new version, the Hatbox Ghost, not the one that was back in the 60s, correct?
Right. Originally, I don't think there was a soundtrack for it. And, you know, the story of it, the quick version is they put this effect in there, but they tried to do it all with lighting. And it looked great on a pitch black soundstage. But when they had the ambient light in the attraction, you could still see the head, you know, on the guy when they turned the light off on it. So they quickly took it out as a fail. And then years later, some of the guys pursued it and put it back in, and now it's done incredibly. So
Yeah.
that was back in 2015, I think it was.
Yeah, it's a kind of a neat addition when you come by and see it standing there. So it's nice they were able to pull it off after all these years.
Yeah, I'm all over the park. I'm the part of the Abominable Snowman in the Matterhorn. I'm the baby Tarzan when you, well, that's gone now. I think they're going to put something else up there. But Exitencio used to drag us out into the recording studio and do these little supplemental voices. And he called it No Dough Productions.
I was just going to say, how often do you get to cash your residual check? And then I remembered, oh, wait.
No. It's just the fun of being able to share the stories.
Oh, I bet it's fun to go there with the family and, you know, just be able to point that sort of thing out.
Yeah, and we're going down next week, and our kids are looking forward to seeing them.
Great. So they ask you for your autograph?
The only time that's happened is when I did a presentation up in Washington for the Northwest Mouse Meet. Guy has a convention up there.
Right.
And that was my moment of fame.
No, I was wondering if your family wanted you to autograph it. My daughter's asking for my autograph all the time on the bottom of a check. So,
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So, yeah, so again, I hope people enjoyed the movies. I obviously enjoy photos. You know, I can zoom in on the slightest detail and try to pick out the price of a menu or things like that. But I think the movies just add so much with the movement when you see the Chrysler Pavilion and the air filter is turning around and the fan is, you know, motor is turning around, that sort of thing. I think it adds an awful lot. And then you catch things that I haven't seen. Like, that's one of the things I always get a kick out of, looking for things that are new. and just seeing them put the kids up on the horse there for the at Lowenbrow. That was, you know, for all the pictures I have, I can't think of any other pictures of somebody with a horse, you know, kid up on a horse. So, you know, you'd almost think, hey, Dad snuck it up there, but you see, it was one of the Lowenbrow people actually doing it. So, yeah, it's always nice to catch, you know, something new, something different as you go through these. And I've got, just looking here, as poor Carol knows, the boxes just keep showing up and more stuff keeps showing up. And I have a lot more movies and a lot more pictures. There was a fellow that ran the 1939 World's Fair website, and he unfortunately passed away. And I've now ended up with his 39 collection. I've got just a huge 2 boxes that showed up with 39 views that he had not used on the fair, so I've got to get those going. But they're beautiful 39 Kodachromes from there, just outstanding. Baron, you had something?
Yeah, Bill, I came into the presentation late, so I don't know if you had mentioned it, but was this fellow that you got the original film from, you know, with the wife with a hat box? Did you get it from him, or did you acquire it by another means?
I got that on eBay, and it was actually interesting. I think I still have. I think I put the reel away. I was looking at it, and it's again about a 400-foot reel of a film, and it was on eBay with next to no description, and the handwritten label on it for World's Fair, he had misspelled both World and Fair. And whoever went off and put it on eBay, you know, happily typed the mislabeled name. And I happened to see it for whatever reason, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to bookmark it, and you know, hopefully this doesn't go for a fortune," because you know, I figured anybody that took a 400-foot reel probably got something neat and fun. And I was really happy. I think it cost me $30. I mean, it wasn't bad at all. It did require a lot of work to restore it. It was a little on the soft focus side, so I had to use a filter to sharpen it, and it took approximately 8 hours. When I have 2 different computers. The one I use behind me, I do most of the color fixing and everything. But the computer I'm now doing this is a fairly fast one. You know, I've got 32 gig of memory and, you know, X number of cores and everything. It still took 8 hours of processing on this computer to sharpen it and do some of the grain reduction and other stuff. So I think that 35-minute film probably, I wasn't sit. I did it. I let it go at night. I wasn't going to sit here for 8 hours and let it do it. But I probably have about 8 hours of editing and cleaning and splicing, because again, I had to take it in several different sections and take out the dark ones and put in the light ones. It wasn't as bad as the Disneyland one, but you know, that's the trouble. The film is back then was very dense, and it wasn't. Dark scenes are really, really tough for the scanner to get through if you just use an average setting. So I basically scan it at 0 amplification, and then it goes from a scale of 0 to 15, and I do it on each of them, and then splice it all together and cut out scene by scene by scene. So thank goodness what you can do in the editors these days.
Well, presumably then that the seller was not the original filmmaker.
The fellow who sold it, no, it was not a Filipino name of the person, because I was tempted to ask him if he had any details on it, but he basically something he got at a yard sale.
Okay, well, you know what's interesting then is that the man who was the filmmaker who shot this 400-foot roll of film probably never realized that 60 years later, how much of a historical find his work would be specifically to, a group of individuals who find value, in the history of the New York World Fair, and that somebody acquired it and cleaned it up and is showing it to a bunch of crazy people here today on Saturday afternoon. So I think that's just a very interesting thing to note, that this guy probably had no clue what was ever to become of this film.
Yeah, somebody mentioned something like that the other day, Baron, on Facebook, the same sort of thing. Somebody posted a movie and said, you could never conceive that I'd be standing here with my phone in my hand looking at this movie, that sort of thing. And you think about all the stuff they predicted back at the 64 fair, with hotels under the sea and, colonies on the moon and everything. And nobody was predicting anything like the internet. Nobody was predicting, like I said, things like Zoom, stuff like that. You wonder how the person would react if you said, hey, here's what you got, and here's how people are going to be watching. It's like I said, 60 years later. It's kind of remarkable.
And what makes this particular piece a slightly more interesting, because I'm sure there were, thousands of home filmmakers, or a film made, from everybody's shooting their camera there. Let me clear my thoughts here. That this particular roll of film, because of its length, and because they weren't short clips, like we normally see in home movies, 2 seconds here, 3 seconds there, the back of Johnny's head, that they were a little more lengthy and a little bit more planned. In fact, somebody just mentioned about, I didn't see who it was, about a little bit more careful attention to, filmmaking. I think this is just a little bit more interesting piece of history because of how it was done. Very, very, very delightful today, Bill. I want to thank you for that, really.
Oh, glad you enjoyed it. I was absolutely thrilled. You buy these things on eBay, it's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get. Like I got one that of Expo 58, and I've scanned it several times. I don't know if I'm just going to chuck it in the can because it was so dark. You can't tell anything that's in there until you see the outline of the atomium. Oh, there it is against the sky. So when you get one of these and you pop it on the thing, and it comes out, and the colors are nice, and the colors have to be restored on all these, but they're still pretty good. But when you see what he did, it was a nice job that he did on it. I don't see there's a fellow named Carlos that's often on these calls. He was here and dropped off earlier. I restored a film of the Boy Scout camp that Carlos and I worked at, and it was the Hit and Run School of Photography. It starts, and if you go to my YouTube channel under Bill Cotter, it's there, but it starts at a Boy Scout meeting in a gym, and they're doing a knot tying class. And the fellow that photographed it was like, I'm going to get a picture of every kid here for 1.2 seconds. I mean, I actually started going and analyzing how many frames he was doing, because these things go at 16 frames a second, and you go, I got 18 frames of this kid, so 1.2 seconds. And it's like a strobe. It's just hitting you. This shot, this shot, this shot. And I left it in there and said, if anybody recognizes who any of these kids are, because they can still frame it or slow motion it. Luckily, when he got to our camp, he wasn't quite as bad. But he also would like, I'm photographing here. Oh, that's cool over there.
Yeah.
It's just, you watch it, and it's like, it's precious to me. It's my Boy Scout camp. I want to see everything. Oh, what?
Yeah.
It was truly pretty horrible.
Yeah, no, it's actually, I see it here. It's Richard that had mentioned that he envies the photo talents of the 400-foot filmmaker, knowing how to set up shots with resolution and a graceful pan. So yeah, I agree with you, Richard. Anyhow, it was I look forward to this today, Bill, because of what it was, but I got busy and I forgot and came in late, so I didn't know if you had mentioned it prior to starting the film or not. If you knew who it was, but no.
I didn't see Richard there. I thought you were still up at Ontiora.
I was doing a little bit of work. I went there twice this past week.
Right.
I'll make it short for the rest of us, but we're doing conservation work up there, and I got a bug to put some native plants down, partly to try to attract the monarchs and the butterflies and the other stuff like that. So I figured I wanted to go there twice this week to try to get the seeds established and pass it off to somebody. So I inside of about 7 days, I was up there twice.
Well, I appreciate you going. For folks that don't know it, this camp was in the Catskill Mountains in New York, and it was very, very heavily forested a century ago for the bark. Of all the trees in the area were skinned of bark so that they could use it to make tannic acid to cure leather. So basically, they went and just cut down everything in sight. There were all sorts of lumber mills that would then turn it into furniture or all sorts of different odds and ends, but it left the hills pretty much well denuded. If you look, we got the hold of the property in mid 50s, and if you look at the pictures of the entrance to the camp in 1955, 56, whenever they took the pictures, it's pretty bare. You go up there today and it's really forested. The trouble is a lot of invasive trees have come into the area, particularly beech trees. So we don't have the cherry trees and some of the other ones that were up there. So Richard and others have been going up there. The last couple of years, we've been sponsoring programs to buy trees that you can get from the state of New York to try to turn it more back into the Catskill habitat of the 1800s as opposed to the Catskill habitat of the 1900s. And it's been really kind of interesting to see what the guys have been able to do. How many trees would you say you planted up there in total so far, Richard?
Well, it looks to me like across 3 or 4 different sites, just off the top of my head, I would think maybe there are 40 or 50, but a large amount of the effort is clearing the beech trees out because they're really invasive and they grow all over the place. So, and not only just planting the trees, which are small saplings, perhaps, I mean, they may not be much bigger than that, putting a collar around them so the deer don't eat them, and watering them. And when we go up there, we tend to those things and sometimes water them. And Steve Shull's going to look after them a couple times as he goes up.
Yeah, I think they've been planting around 40 a year, 50 a year for the last 2-3 years. So there's a good number of them up there. And the one thing Richard isn't mentioning is that if you ever want to find rock, you can go to Ontario because it is the Livingston Manor, New York is the worst place in the world to go and try to farm. If you guys remember the movie How the West Was Won, Carl Malden is talking about how he had a rock farm, and he's going on about I plowed up rocks, and one year I got a bumper crop, and you would dig a hole to try to get a well, and rocks would come spewing out. That's the soil in Ontario. So these guys deserve a yeoman's praise because just putting these little saplings in. Now Carol stepped away, so she could tell you she put a little sapling. We went to the LA County Fair every year for years, and she got a little sapling maybe this tall of a redwood tree, which is now about 70 foot outside the front of our house. I mean, it dwarfs everything around. So I keep saying I'm waiting for the thing to grow large enough I can put a tunnel through it and charge people to drive their cars through it. But yeah, thanks for everything you do up there. And have you seen that movie I posted, Richard, of Ontario from 62?
Not yet, but if you allow me to share, I do have a really idyllic picture of something that happened this week up on the lake.
Sure, and then we'll get to you in a second, Tom. I see you got your hand up, so let me just let Richard be able to share here.
Are you seeing that?
Oh, yes. Oh, that's
wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's Orchard Lake. I guess it's a man-made lake. They flooded it and put a dam at the far edge. And it's not just humans who like to make it a habitat.
That's really pretty. Yeah, that's the lake in the picture behind me, but that's really a spectacular shot.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it's called Orchard Lake because it was an apple orchard, and there was a rod and skeet club that came in and bought it here. Let me end this here 1 second. This Rod and Ski Club bought it and built a dam down at the far end of the lake, and then flooded it. And when I got there for the first time in 1963, you had to be very careful where you did your fishing, because all the apple, they didn't bother cutting down the apple trees. They just flooded the orchard, and they were all still down there. So down near the dam at the shallowest part of the lake, and off to right behind where my head is in the shot, in a few spots, the branches still stuck up above the water. And luckily, I think most of them have pretty well rotted away by now. But you definitely, as you were out there canoeing and would come to a dead stop, you knew why it was called Orchard Lake. Tom, you've been patient with your hand up. What do you have, sir?
Hi. Well, so just the current thing is these are redwood starts that I just planted about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
From a start that's the same story as you have. It's like we had a small start, put it out in the yard. It's now about 20 feet high. So I thought that was so cool. I didn't think redwoods would grow here, but they do. So anyway, now I've got all those starts going to try to propagate some more. But the reason I raised my hand was Ken was talking about It's a Small World. We had a friend who grows their own wine on the other, it's called Mount Olympus here in Salt Lake City. And the Pinot Noir, not that that matters that much, but anyway, they had a tasting party and had us all come. And this old guy is sitting there and he asked me where I'm from. I said, I'm originally from Minnesota. And he goes, oh, so am I. And he said, my grandfather was one of the people that captured the Jesse James gang in Northfield, Minnesota. And I'm like going, no way. I said, my great grandmother was in the bank when it was robbed by Jesse James. So his father had they awarded him a silver tea set, and they were trying to decide if they should donate that to the Northfield Museum and all. And anyway, just talk about small world. I thought that was, we certainly had lots of those events happen over the years, but I thought that one was probably the tops.
Well, that's really neat. Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking of, the small world connection thing. I went to college upstate New York, 400 miles away from Long Island. And I was sitting in the cafeteria one day and I said something to somebody like, growing up in Brooklyn, and the guy at the next table turned around and said, oh, you were from Brooklyn. Where were you? And I said, oh, I lived on 1482 East 53rd Street between L and M. And he said, East 53rd? And I said, yeah. It goes, between L and M? I said, yeah. It goes, I was on 52nd between L and M. Well, it was really interesting because all the houses were, in rows. It was all developed in, the grid system. And there was a fence that went through all the backyards. And it became a big thing for the kids in the neighborhood. Could you walk the boundary fence, from one end of the block to the other? And in some cases, people had built garages right up to the fence, and you'd have to climb up on the roof of the garage, go across, and come back down. Well, it turned out this guy lived 2 houses away from me on the other side of the fence, because he was saying, I walked that fence too. And did you ever have to get over to so-and-such garage? Yeah. Did the dogs go after you? Yeah. Did he come out with a shotgun with rock salt? No, I never had that. We were just amazed that of all of, Long Island or Brooklyn and everything, we lived literally 2 houses apart, and here we are 400 miles away, 30 years later talking about it, or 20 years later, I guess, talking about it up at college. It was, just amazing how those things happen. So is anybody on the call here, just to take roll call, anybody on the call here from Baldwin, Long Island, or Brooklyn, New York? Anybody that was one of my neighbors? Good. I was afraid I might owe you money. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Anybody else? Anything else?
I have a quick
Yeah.
question.
Sure.
When you buy these films or slides or whatever on eBay or a yard sale, do you acquire the rights to those, or who owns the copyright?
I try to get them from the people that I buy them from. I ask them if they would be so kind to send a release on it. In most cases, people say, yeah, sure, I don't care if it helps me sell it. Others, I don't want to get involved with anything like that. Take your chances with whatever you do. But I do try to ask, can you give me something that I could do something with this? So, I can try to hang on to it and not have it just end up going into the wild, so to speak.
Okay, so the original photographer still owns the copyright to that piece.
That's the whole thing that becomes a particular issue. If you and it's interesting. I tried to donate my photo collection to the Library of Congress, thinking, I want something to happen to this stuff. Where's it going to go when Cotter kicks the bucket? Because my kids aren't going to want it. So I started having discussions with the Library of Congress, and they said, "Do you have a copy of the ownership for each picture?" And I go, I got 100,000 pictures. No, I don't for every one. And I said, "Oh, because we administer the copyright law, we can't get it." And it drove them crazy because they wanted to get the collection. But that's the problem. The way the copyright law is written, that somebody takes the picture and they die, and their families, excuse me, sells off the stuff. Does their family have the rights to sell it? Yeah, I guess their family has the right to sell it. But what if the whole family's dead and it's an auctioneer company that's hired by the real estate agent to empty out the house? It just becomes a real murky mess with all that stuff. So I stick a copyright notice on it because I figure at least I'm going to copyright my derivative work, the editing that I've done, the color correction, all that particular stuff that I've done. If I ever ended up in a real legal battle with somebody, I don't know which way it would go or how it would turn or whatever. But the way the copyright laws are written, it's a real mess. Now, there was a guy I knew in Baldwin. They had an incredible collection of pictures and old maps and everything from old Long Island and Brooklyn that I said, "You really need to put this in a book." And he said, "I can't. No publisher will touch it, because this map from 1898, who may or may not own the copyright for it." And they call them orphaned works. And there's just a tremendous amount of stuff out there that publishers won't touch because of what somebody might make a claim on it that I'm the heir to this or to that.
That's really interesting. You see thousands and thousands of stuff on YouTube. All the Disney collection is on there, the old cartoons and everything. And I guess it's one of those that unless somebody's making a whole lot of money with it, nobody's going to come after them.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I did a picture that they have so many automated things that will track, and match it automatically. I don't use a lot of the Disney music and the Disney films because it will automatically say, "Oh, this came from the Disney album," whatever. But I put a film up on my YouTube channel about 2 weeks ago. There was a very, very strange movie. I mean, you buy stuff and you get it, and what is this? And this one particular roll was just like 10 segments of really weird stuff. A monkey walking on stilts and these women dancing and a guy eating a glass and people dressed in Arabian costumes. So if you go to Bill Cotter, the channel there, it's up there. Well, I put it on YouTube and it came up with a copyright claim against one of the segments. And I said, and it still displays it. It just says I'm not able to monetize it, which I don't monetize any of it. I don't have ads on any of it. But it was from a Mexican movie done, I think, in 1947 of somebody's dream sequence and a mamba dance. Why that one 30-second clip, it got there, but it picked it up. So what most of the things, because I have occasionally put stuff up and it will come up and say, you can't monetize it, and the copyright owner will let you use it, but they reserve the right to display ads. The only time I've had an issue is the show I did for this, where I did Disney at Christmas time. And I showed the Disney World and Disneyland Christmas parades or whatever, but I also showed some Disney cartoons, Mickey Mouse at, Christmas, that sort of thing. And Disney said, "Oh, we're going to block it for use in the United States because of copyright." So yet the exact same short that Disney said, and I don't think Disney didn't pick it, it was just robotically done. But the exact same short that said, "Well, you can't display your movie because you've got this short in it," there's got to be 10 copies of it on YouTube anyway. So it's just a really weird situation.
Yeah, some years ago, we found on the internet a lot of the music, you know, that was playing in the parks and stuff, and people were posting it on there. So I sent the website over to the studio lawyers, and they called me back and says, "Wow, this is amazing. How did you find this?" And I said, "I Googled Disney music." But they never did anything. You know, it seemed like they were spending more time going after people making counterfeit T-shirts and stuff than worry about listening to our background music loop on the internet.
When I was at Warner Brothers and the internet first started coming around, it's in the day before Google, I think search engines were like Ask Jeeves or some of the others. We were trying to figure out how much people were doing with Warner Brothers intellectual property. So the lawyers asked me to, you know, do a search, and I did it, and I came back and said, you know, I can send the report over, but can you bring a hand truck so I could print it out? I mean, it was just everywhere. And this was in the days, again, I don't know how many of you guys are old internet geeks. Do you remember they had sites like called Archie? It was like there were some people that loved coming up with acronyms. So they had Archie was the hierarchical something internet, whatever. And then there was a Veronica. They had different search engines in that. But basically, people would build an FTP site and you know, have it up there. So you would go into these search engines, and then it would say that all this stuff is at this site, and you'd have to go file by file, download it, and see if it was what you wanted. Well, for the most part, they said, oh, we don't have the time to go after all this stuff. But I had to hire one of my guys, and he had to go through it. And his job, this is no joke, to look for the use of Warner Brothers characters in pornographic settings, because some people were doing their own animation of the Animaniac characters and some others and putting them in porno films. And the Warner lawyers went after them tooth and nail. But I mean, literally, I had the guy, it was funny, he ended up leaving, became a cop in Burbank, but his whole job was to sit there and surf the internet looking for pornographic Warner Brothers videos for 8 hours a day.
Oh, my.
What was scary was how many he found. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah, I've heard rumors of the Mickey Mouse copyright running out. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh, that's a real mess. Yeah. The Mickey Mouse, the copyrights run out next year for the early Disney cartoons. So Steamboat Willie, Flame Crazy, Galloping Gaucho, those sort of things would run into public domain. What that means is anybody has the right then to take a copy of Galloping Gaucho and put it on YouTube, and Disney couldn't do anything about it. But people cannot then use that image of Mickey and do anything to promote it, because Disney still owns the trademark on Mickey. So that's what they're hoping, is to keep everybody from just going out and flooding the whole market with everything. Now, because of the whole thing going on with Florida, with DeSantis and everything, somebody has come up, I forget which one of the butthead senators has done it. He's trying to come up with a thing to say, because they had done the Sonny Bono Extension Act, which was also known as the Mickey Mouse Protection Act. He's now trying to say that they ought to strip Disney of their copyright protection, just Disney, nobody else, just strip Disney of copyright protection and make Mickey Mouse publicly available to everybody, which again, you still can't, the music's, you know, copyright and everything, but the trademark, the design of Mickey is very carefully trademarked. Every single permutation with pie cut eyes, round eyes, three-dimensional ears, Disney has very carefully trademarked every one of those. So it's going to be a real mess. You know, it's, I mean, the whole political thing is just turned into a real swamp.
Yes,
So,
it really has. Thanks for your insight.
yeah, we'll see how that all goes. I mean, it's, you know, the whole thing that I've done a lot of reading on this in the last year or two. You know, the whole idea about the copyright law only going for X number of years was to encourage people to, get their ideas out there. So medical advances and everything, other people can go off and do it. But, like I said, it's become a real challenge. They've made it so murky that there's so many things you can't touch. But somebody was telling me the other day, they were just telling, oh, Albert Fisher, we were talking to him. He bought the rights to all of the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And he donated the films to the Library of Congress. But if you were ever on the Amateur Hour, you can write to Albert, and he'll license you a DVD of your performance on Amateur Hour. But he talked to several TV networks, the cable networks, about bringing back the Amateur Hour and putting it on TV. And they said, do you have a release for everybody that was in the show? And he says, well, I don't. I have the releases for all the famous people who are in the show, but somebody at point in time had gone through and called the files. So he's got it and can say, here, I've got the first one for, say, Nat King Cole on it, and I've got the one for so-and-such on it. So everybody on the show had to fill out the exact same release, and I have 3,000 releases that are all identical, but I don't have one for Tom Brooks when he was on the show, because he wasn't famous then like he is now. And the network said, oh, no. If you don't have a release for everybody, we just can't air it. So you've got this tremendous resource that is just unseen because everybody's scared to death that somebody could come by and sue them for it. So it's just all sorts of things that are all messed up and tangled up there.
Yeah, I have a friend. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say they had an issue getting the Wonder Years, I think, on DVD because they use so much contemporary music in the show, and they hadn't licensed that for redistribution or whatever after the broadcast.
That's become a big challenge over the years. One of my favorite TV series was The Greatest American Hero. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yep.
And when they put it on a DVD, they had to change the soundtrack because the exact same issue, they didn't have the rights for it. And it's one of the great episodes, which I think was the first one I had ever seen, where they're playing the Eve of Destruction, and the whole thing is about, you've got to stop this rocket launch before it stops World War III from starting. And, whoever was that sang it, Barry Sadler, it wasn't him, it was somebody else, I can't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Take the whole song out and put something else in. So, the music's going, and they did an okay job with putting something in, but it had none of the same impact that they did it. And Disney had that was, I'm trying to remember one of the series that they, Wonder Years, a couple others, they've had to go back and, just come up with generic stuff.
WKRP had that problem.
Yeah. So that they just can't use it at all.
So I guess that means you have to get releases from all of us to put the Zoom chats up on the internet.
No, I'm going to get it from your heirs if you make any trouble. No,
I have a friend who's a composer. She writes choral music, has been writing for a long time. Her name, she's best known as by her former name, Sonia Plorman. She says that nowadays there's a problem just writing for choirs, that there are people who attempt to sue because you use the same chord progressions.
Yeah.
And it's like, there are only so many chord progressions. It's not possible to avoid repeating someone else's chord progressions, but it's a mess. It really
Out
is.
here in LA, we have people suing all the time, and being with so many record companies that makes the press out here. And somebody said, well, the same sort of thing. You use the chord progression A, C, D, C, D, and that's the same thing that I used, and now I won $7 million. And
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that they are not allowed to play, for whatever reason the laws are, they can't play the music in the court to let you see whether or not it sounds like it or not. So you've got to have experts testifying that, yes, I heard it and it sounds very much like it. And then another witness will come in and say, oh, I heard it and they don't sound anything alike. And now the damn jury has to decide between it. So you think, would somebody say, this was stolen from Inagata de Villa? And then somebody says, no, it wasn't. I never even heard of that song, which I don't know how you could not hear of it, but it's just a real mess. Now, Glenn, at the very beginning, you'll notice when I record it, the lady comes on and says, this thing is being recorded. So you've all had, fair warning. And Harold made note here, looking forward to more films from Expo 67. So am I. I just scanned another one this week. I did not have time to get it done, but Expo 67 got some great films of that. Particularly, we showed like a mini train going through the USA Pavilion. So many people would just get up on the mini train or mini rail, I guess it was called, and rest their feet and go for a ride on it and take pictures of it. That I'm looking forward to sharing those.
I've read that even some of the people in the pavilion would reach out to the people in the mini rail train and shake hands as it went through.
Yeah, today they would be grabbing on and trying to drag them out or something, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. I've got some movies, mostly souvenir. It's really funny. People took so many movies of like the '64 World's Fair and Expo, and then when they got to Hemisphere, it doesn't seem like people took movies. You know, I've got a couple of souvenir films I bought of that, or Expo '70 in Osaka, different things. It seemed like movies just took a giant drop down, and this is before video came along. So I'm not sure why the fascination. I mean, just the number of videos or films out there really it's very hard to find for some of the later films, and it's unfortunate too. We've mentioned on some of the others. Like I just scanned this one. It's a panoramic view of the '64 World's Fair official castle film, and it's gone 80%, 90% red. I'm having a hell of a time restoring it. And it's also one of the things, it's very, very soft. You know, when I first put it on the scanner, I thought, oh my God, scanner's broken. No, they just made them with such lousy quality control, or they duped them, you know, 1,000 at a time or something that they're, so you look at it and there's some really neat footage on it. And what's neat about this particular film is it was shot very, very early in 1964. So when the fair opened, they had something to sell. So there's actually some shots in there you can realize they shot during construction, because you can see trucks and everything parked around some of the pavilions and that. But I've put this through the color correction program 4 times so far, and it may end up as a black and white film, because it's just, I'm not happy how it's turning out. And I have probably 3 or 4 copies of this, and I got to go find the other copies, because you know you buy lots of stuff and they end up in there. I keep hoping that I find one that is not as bad on it. What I get a kick at though is, again, this is there's no price tag in this one. There's a guy, I think I paid $5 or something for this. There's a guy that tries to sell this every single month on eBay, and I think he's asking $195 for it. And he would say, maybe you could realize that, you know, nobody's going to buy it, right? So I was looking just this morning at, you know, films available and everything, and up comes one of these, and it's not $199. The guy now wants $299. Then there's another guy today. They were selling, Disney used to sell, you know, the cartoons on these 50-foot reels, you know, silent versions. And you can basically give them away. Because you could get them all on, you know, HD and everything these days. But the boxes are kind of neat, you know, with an old Mickey logo on it. And there's a guy selling one today for $2.99 and free shipping. And if you do a search on it, you can see everybody else is trying to sell them for $4. You know, so you know, I asked somebody one time at a toy show that he had a display there of the triangular badges from the Man from U.N.C.L.E. And they were sold at toy shops and everything. And he would bring this to every single toy thing and try to, each of the badges, you know, maybe sell for $10, but he had 20 of them, so he wanted $5,000. And I said to him, do you really think you're going to get it? You know, and particularly every show you bring it to, it get a little bit more dinged up and a little less pristine or whatever. And I said to him, do you really think you're going to sell this? You know, and he says, I only need to find one guy that really wants it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember going back to him about 10 years later and said that one guy hasn't come along yet, but he would still cart this. I mean, to me, I would rather say, how much do you want for it? 500? I'll sell it to you. Be done with it. Move on. But yeah, that's what people say. It only takes one. So I will probably be doing more scanning. I will look for more Expo 67 films. How many people would like to see more Expo 67? Okay, I have a bunch of them in the garage. I'll jump. Oh, Don is frantically waving.
My hand was off frame.
Yeah. I'm waving. Oh, wait. But I will try to come up with more Expo 67 films for it. And some of them might be from Man and His World as well. Greg, you have your hand up?
Yes, I would like to see more Expo 67.
Okay, I'll see what we can do for that. You did sign up.
See whether anybody had hat boxes that they brought along.
What's that?
see if anybody brought their hat box along to Expo 67.
Yeah, right.
Or if that same couple went to Expo 67.
Now, Greg, to see the Expo 67 films, you have signed up for our premium passport package, correct? It was funny, you guys that work at WED would know Dave Snyder. Dave, last week was giving me a hard time because he does dog training on Saturdays, and it was free last Saturday, and I was not. So he was saying, I can't believe you did it. So I sent out the note this week and said, doing it. He goes, oh, I'm doing the dog training. But I had said something about popcorn not included. And he goes, what the hell? No popcorn? And, I always have popcorn at the movies. And I said, you did sign up for the premium package, right? And he goes, what's that going to cost? And I said, everything you got. I said, sorry, I was channeling my inner Disney. So
You need a breeder's guide. Remember that?
oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so, Dave is a great guy. If everybody that worked with him, he what a resource he is. So I'd love to, again, I keep trying to talk to all of you ex-WED guys, come and share your memories with us. There's so much of it I'd like to get recorded while you're still there. Well, thanks everybody. I hope, Carolyn, you can dig yourself out of the snow, and I wish you'd send some of it here.
I'll bring a bottle with me when I'm there next month.
Well, yesterday was a really interesting day. We woke up here and everything was wet. We had drizzle, and I think the high for the day hit 70. So it was an absolutely delightful day to be out there. So
We do thank you for not burning down Griffith Observatory earlier this week.
That was scary when the news.
Oh,
came
thanks for letting me know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for folks that don't know it, a homeless guy tried to get into a house that was being remodeled for sale, and they told him he wasn't allowed to get in. So in exchange, he decided to burn the house down. So he set the canyon on fire behind the house. Unfortunately, flames tend to go up hills and not down hills. The house was saved being at the bottom of the hill, but the Griffith Park Observatory was at the top of the hill. So now they had the problem. They needed to, and they really jumped on it really fast to try to put this thing out. But the one and only road that comes down from the Griffith Park Observatory was blocked by flame and smoke. So now they have the problem. They can't evacuate it because there's only one road out, and that road is closed. So they got on it real hard, real fast. They had helicopters, ground crews, and they luckily they caught the guy that did it. The realtor had videotaped him trying to break in, showed it to the cops. Oh, that's the guy down the street. The guy, being an idiot, stuck around to help put out the fire because he wanted to be a hero. And they said, that's the guy over there. So that they got him. So, but that was really scary to watch. I forget what. So we had a fire that I had to work a week ago Friday that was really bad, where 2 cars hit and exploded, set the hill on fire. Then we had the Griffith Park fire. Then that night, some idiots were throwing fireworks out of cars and set the highway on fire near Carroll and me on fire in 4 spots. We've had fire after fire after fire. So when we woke up yesterday and everything was wet, it was absolutely, a delight to see.
I know the feeling.
Oh yeah, but luckily they got it. I mean, when they have one of these fires, they really jump at it. The fire department does just a tremendous job. The fire I worked, they had the LA County, LA City, Simi Valley, and Ventura County Fire Department all there, and they were on it within 10 minutes. Helicopters, trucks, everything, and they come all out. So, but they're going to be very, very busy this summer, I'm afraid. It's scary. All right, I've got my working orders. I will get on to Expo 67, and we will, Harold, will you sing the theme song for us next week?
In English or French?
Both.
Both.
It was a better theme song than the 64 theme song. So, it was a catchy tune. So great. Well, I hope everybody has a great week, and I will look forward to seeing folks next week then.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey.
Phil.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.